Charles, I really do kind of regret not going into the Donald Trump rally that we just witnessed there at Madison Square Garden, because I think that might have been the most incredible. I don't think anybody's ever had a rally like that before. How are you, Charles?
I'm fine, Jason. Thanks for connecting me from afar. I think that was not only the greatest political show on earth, that was one of the greatest shows ever produced. I mean, it was first of all, it wasn't a show; it was substantive. Trump was not using a teleprompter. I don't think that Kamala Harris, if they were had concessions where they're selling, Snickers bars, I don't think that she could actually manage the process of giving Snickers bars and counting out the change and using the credit card machine at that rally, let alone attempt to put together this type of tour de force. I mean, contrast this with the bait and switch Beyonce rally in Houston, where the Democrats had to weren't going to fill a stadium for Kamala Harris, so they said, "Oh, Beyonce's going to give a concert," and all these people show up for that, and then Beyonce mumbles a few words apparently about abortion or something,
And then leaves.
and it leaves, and the crowd leaves, and then you see the reaction of the my Twitter feed, which of course is not going to be representative of the country at large, but is going to be more pro-Trump, I would guess. But my Twitter feed is just filled with reactions to the Beyonce concert, chiefly from Black people, just telling Beyonce that she ought to stay home and worry about what Jay-Z's been up to with P. Diddy and
Exactly.
Epstein, and stop messing around talking about how Black people should vote. And then you see Michelle Obama gets out there and gives an introduction for an hour and 15 minutes. And I think, as I said on my Twitter feed, either her hairdresser's pissed at her or she stiffed the hairdresser, but they took, the material they had and they made it look worse in that hairdo and that getup. She gets up there and she's angry again. What? Excuse my language. I'll get in trouble for this, and I don't care. What does that bitch have to be upset about at this point? She has never held a legitimate job. If you go back through her track, she's a DEI hire and a failure at that. She has 4 mansions. She has just offers. She gets paid tremendous amounts of money to utter banalities before friendly audiences around the world. She flies private. She has, she doesn't seem to want to wonder why one of her male personal chefs was found dead in one of her ponds at one of her estates. Doesn't seem to care too much about how that could have happened. And she wants to try to say that if you don't want to vote for a vegetable who is a crooked vegetable cipher who's been lying about her background from the moment she entered politics on her knees, and has never really truly done anything positive for Americans, let alone for people of color, true Blacks. You're going to try to tell me that if I don't want to vote for an idiot, that I'm a racist and I'm a sexist? It's a ridiculous argument. Who put her up to make that argument? And you contrast that with Trump and the spontaneity and the team that was there. I mean, Dr. Phil, a disciple of Oprah Winfrey, who owes his fame and fortune to Oprah, who's, I think, one of the big backers of this idiot. I can't even say her name, Kamala Harris. Dr. Phil gave a spontaneous endorsement for Trump. Robert Kennedy, Tulsi Gabbard, Elon Musk. Who would you rather have? You want Brat? You want that idiot in the commercial that they just put out who's whacking off under a blanket? How they thought that was a good idea to promote the Harris Waltz ticket. So, this is Obama made the point that ISIS was the JV. Remember when he was president? They're just the JV. This is not even the team. This is a team of diaper babies. They're 6 months old, figuratively speaking. These are idiots. And they somehow raised billions of dollars to promote Kamala Harris and Tampon Tim at this time in America, when crime is rampant, when inflation is raging, when we're on the cusp of World War III, we've got an open side. You seriously want Tampon Tim and the French fry liar, Kamala Harris, to be out there putting together a cabinet to try to change the arc of history from the downward death spiral that has been on under crooked Joe Biden and Kamala Harris? So I think this was a great rally. I'm delighted that there were no significant negative events during the rally, and that people got there safely, and I hope they get home safely. I also think there's a chance that Trump could win New York.
Yeah, I think that's right.
You know, people forget. I mean, the way to think about New York City, and it's difficult to know because there's been all this migration, illegal immigration in, and rich people leaving, like Trump and others. But New York has had statewide races that were won at federal level by Reagan twice. They've been won by Governor Pataki, a Republican. They've been won in New York City by Bloomberg, and of course he had a lot of money going for him, and Giuliani. And New Yorkers know better than most just how rotten the Big Apple has become, and the Empire State has become under these Democrats. And even Mayor Adams is beginning. Even somebody as dumb as Mayor Adams, and I would suggest he's probably 5 times smarter than Kamala Harris. Even he sees that sanctuary cities and states don't work. It's a crazy ass idea that you can't have a government where the district attorney in Manhattan is more interested in prosecuting on the flimsiest of bases, a former president of the United States than he is in going after trendy Aragua, MS-13, and the violent criminals that have been brought to New York City thanks to Kamala Harris and the moron Joe Biden, and thanks to open border policies and supposedly progressive policies promoted by Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama and Michelle Obama.
One small problem, though, Charles. I see President Trump falling into a little bit of I don't know if it's a trap, but he, again, at the rally spoke, kind of like in support of professional dunce and criminal Eric Adams. And I think Trump is not fully understanding the situation with Eric Adams, because he thinks this is happening because he spoke out against immigration. I'm not sure that that's the complete story, because now, just during the rally, Trump said, "Oh, they upgraded his ticket on a plane," and
he also did insert the caveat, it could be something more. He did say that.
I did notice that. Good point, Charles. Yeah. I love your attention to detail.
Yeah. So the thing of it is that to put the money coalition together behind Trump, the big money, big corporate coalition, you have to cut a deal on state and local taxes. Got to make those deductible, because that really does kill the middle class. It hurts the rich, but it kills salaried employees who are based in New York City and San Francisco and Los Angeles and Chicago and elsewhere. If you're making $400,000, you're paying a lot of state, local, and property taxes. And the deal that Trump cut, the tax deal that he cut, needs to be amended, in my opinion. I actually think you could lower taxes more, even more than he had done in his tax deal. I think there are other tweaks that could make it all come together very nicely. And I'm delighted. I mean, I thought Elon Musk, everyone likes the super rich, but he's like a super rich spectacle. He's like a, right? I mean, he entered the room and the energy of the room changed, and he puts on that hat and he's dancing around. And Trump didn't make, and I think that the mainstream is going to try to belittle Musk for being an immigrant and belittle Melania's touching, but in some ways halting speech for her accent. And I actually think both those are fantastic examples of legal immigrants,
right,
who came to this country, brought their respective talents, and are personally better off, and made New York City and America better, Musk's case in particular, by being the inventive genius that he is, who's not just a genius, he's a practical business dude who is, as he says on his appeared on my Twitter feed, but he obviously went out on his, that He's paid more personal income taxes than any other living American.
Yeah, he said he wanted a
And as
little
he put it,
trophy from the
rather than
IRS.
as he put it, rather than being demonized by the left, you would think he'd get something like a trophy or a cookie or something. I mean, and I agree with that. The people, I'm aware of a Swiss bank. I used to do some, not being paid by them, but I used to speak at conferences for them in the Bahamas and Switzerland and elsewhere. And they cut a deal, which is possible in Switzerland, because so many of their bankers make a lot of money. They cut a deal that the very top of the heap pays no income taxes in Geneva for a commitment to keep everyone else inside Geneva. And the lower down people pay a tremendous amount of taxes. And even though they lose, not taxing the 8 or 10 top people, it's more than made up by taxing the several thousand people who could have gone, all of them, to the Bahamas and left Switzerland and Geneva with nothing. So, people like Musk, every single company that Musk runs did not exist in 1980. Right? I mean, think of that. Kamala Harris talked about all the jobs that Criminal Joe and she created. She didn't create one freaking job. The only job she created, I'm not going to use the entire word. She is, these are just, yeah, she's a shitbag and a low IQ person who should have nothing. She should be nowhere near the decisions of, what color the drapes should be in the White House, let alone whether she should be the last person to decide if we're going to go to war or not. I mean,
Yeah.
this person is just unqualified. And it's disgraceful that Barack Obama and Michelle Obama and Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton would today, in this moment, say that somebody who never won a single vote in any primary should be stuffed in to try to rescue the Democratic Party and then fails so miserably that, frankly, I think Joe Biden would have done a better job against Donald Trump.
People
at
are
least he
starting
would
to
have
say
tried.
that. Yeah, they're starting to say that, Charles, that his numbers were better, and he had that moment where Bill Clinton was trying to, rile up RFK talking about his mom. And Joe was like, I'm stronger than her. But it's pathetic. We've never seen somebody more outclassed in anything. I really can't recall a mismatch greater than this. On the one hand, I mean, I agree with everything that you're saying. I've seen a bunch of different shows at Madison Square Garden, like, The Police and Sting and Sade and Eric Clapton and all kinds of amazing and fantastic stuff. But there was something going on there. I really was like, wow, I've missed a once in a lifetime thing by not being in that room. When Hulk Hogan was out there, it's funny because it's like, you see him and he's aging and everything, but he still has giant muscles. It's like looking at like an old superhero, but it takes you back through the timeline of Donald Trump in New York and how he's, in addition to being the president, and frankly very good at running what is a big, gigantic mess here, he's also just a pop icon American figure from back in the day when basically anybody alive can remember.
Yeah. Yeah. And, well that in business, if you're going to run a business that's you hope will last for generations, you love good customers, right? You want a good customer, a loyal customer is somebody you want to keep happy. You want to consult. You want to ask them how you can improve your product or service. You want to engage them. You want to reward them. The way these Democrats seem to work is you take your best customers, the rich, in terms of their personal taxes and the employees that they hire and pay, who themselves pay personal income taxes. You would think that what you'd want to do is take somebody like Donald Trump in New York City and make him very happy indeed. Think of the billions of dollars that he has had flow through the coffers of New York City and the state. But no, what Tish James and his idiot Hochul and Eric Adams and the others decided to do, and Alvin Bragg, who's got nothing to brag about, they decided that not only would they punish Donald Trump, one of their best customers, they would persecute him. That's an example that's going to have to be the only way you can overcome that example is by tearing this precedent apart. New York City, people in my day, decades ago, people were floating the crazy idea that places like Manhattan and Washington, D.C., and certain other parts of the country ought to have a special tax deal, not unlike Hong Kong, that you lower the income tax rate down to, say, 15%, the top rate, or Singapore, in the hopes that a lot of capital would come flowing into places like DC, in New York City, and pick a few other places. That actually, I think, is a very sensible idea. I'm seeing it out here in Southeast Asia. These different countries are all competing against one another to have the global conglomerates relocate out of intolerant Western Europe, intolerant Ireland, which used to be a haven, intolerant New York City, to places like Singapore and different spots in Malaysia and Indonesia and Thailand and other places. And that's something that America could do. We could stop that right in its tracks, and we should do it. But instead, you've got Kamala Harris. I mean, everyone on her campaign staff at a senior level must be on crack. And the decisions they're making are so bad.
That would explain it, at least.
Right?
Well, but Charles, let me ask you this, not to redirect you, but to redirect you for a second, because this is important. What do you think about Elon Musk? He's been giving away $1 million a day. It's amazing how this combination of Elon Musk and Donald Trump, that's the thing. It's like the greatest show on earth. Who wants to be a millionaire rolled into a WrestleMania with a rock concert there and opera music and everything? But he's giving away $1 million a day, and now they're trying to, do something to prosecute him or something.
Well, I think what's happened, back in when Jerry Corsi did his book, Where's the Birth Certificate? I'll tell you who the person was. I was in contact with a man called Andrew Neil, Neil. And he was a very powerful man who had his own BBC show. He'd been editor of The Economist, I think The Times, and all. He's a big, fancy-ass guy. And he actually said that I was crazy on GE, that I was wrong, but then when I was proven right, he admitted that he had been wrong and I was right. And so we then began to talk about Obama and the birth certificate, and he sent me the nastiest freaking email. Never contact me again. How dare you bring up this issue of whether Obama's birth certificate is genuine and this and that.
Who is this guy, Charles?
Andrew Neil, Neil. And I think it's Andrew, it might be F. Neil, I forget his middle initial, but he's a very famous guy. He's the guy who either threw Alex Jones off the set in BBC, or Alex Jones, I forget which was which, but yeah, that's him.
I think I've seen this guy. Yeah.
Yeah. He's very pompous. And he's had most of the big jobs that you can have in the UK media establishment. This guy has had. He's very full of himself. But back when that happened in 2011, Obama was cool, right? I mean, he was the brand. He was the new rising brand, and you were an idiot if you didn't understand that he was the future. And you got to hire other Obamas. And
he's down with Rupert Murdoch.
Oh yeah,
these are British dentures.
Yeah. Anyway, so but that was back in 2011, and I think at some stage during the course of our partnership from June 2017 on these shows, at some stage it became cool to be a Trump supporter. And I don't know whether that was in the last week or month or days or whatever, but when you see the combination of reactions, I mean, the different things that Trump is doing, remember, he's 78, he's not 18. This is a guy who could reject new ways of thinking and new approaches to the audience, but no, he listens to his advisors. He has excellent advisors, in my opinion, now. And he's, she's going to go out, and Joe Rogan wasn't so sure about Trump, and she's going to do Rogan. And then she says, I can't do it. I got scheduling difficulties. but she doesn't have any events. So what are her scheduling difficulties? I mean, she's got what, nail hair to do. She's not going to use Michelle Obama's hairdresser, that's for sure. But um, and Trump goes on Rogan, and there's somebody was with Trump the whole day, and it wasn't like he just did Rogan. He did interview after interview. He did Rogan. He then got on planes and went to different places and did rallies. I mean, this man is definitely. You could dislike some of his speeches. You could dislike his off the cuff remarks. You could dislike his history. But are you seriously going to think that it's a smart idea to have a team led by Brat, who doesn't want to show up, right? And with all her joyless joy, talking like Hitler. I mean, literally talking like Hitler in the last several days with the same, we cannot have this. No. And somebody put up the split screen of her talking like that and Hitler talking the same way, calling out Donald Trump for being Hitler if he gets in office. I don't recall there being any threat during Donald Trump's presidency of him becoming Hitler. Do you remember any, flirtation with being Hitler back then? Because I certainly don't. So here's Donald Trump, and the wrestlers, the championship wrestling team from Penn State, the male wrestling team, they love him. Women love him, young women, old women, middle-aged women. Law and Order people love him. Hispanics love him. And now, of all things, out in Michigan, a rally with Muslim imams and business leaders and others voting in polls overwhelmingly for Donald Trump. This is the man who they were just trying to say was going to kill all the Muslims in America, not the jihadists, just all the Muslims. And here we have Muslim leaders in the heat of this battle, in the final closing days, gathering to support Trump, while Joe Biden is on yet another vacation. And who knows, Kamala Harris is probably under a different sheet. I mean, she's probably counts as her supporter, Britney Spears, who's a deeply troubled woman who decided recently that it's a good idea to marry herself. Must have taken her 6 or 7 years to negotiate the prenuptial agreement. But, that's the kind of supporter that Brat has. And people understand Britney Spears is not cool. I'm not saying she supports Kamala, but the people around Kamala, the celebrities who pretend to support her, they're basically faded relics of the past. And most of them are clueless when it comes to economics and politics and have no connection to the average American who's been decimated, punished by crooked and sleepy Joe and by Kamala. So as of this minute, and things can change, let's hope they don't change for the worse. But as of this minute, I think we're looking at a landslide. And I think we're looking at something that is too big to rig, and something that will give Trump the clear mandate that he needs to affect the promises he's made, this time with the experience and cynicism required to distrust the deep state. And I sincerely hope that he is not roped in by bad advisors to making the mistake of saying, you know what, to move the country forward, maybe we should give a pardon to the people, both sides in the past who were problems, so that we can start with a clean slate and move forward. I hope he doesn't fall into that trap, because they will out-trade him on that deal. The people who have done the bad things in the deep state and academia and media in multinational land, the investment world, those people, if they get off with a slap on the wrist or a pardon, they will be back to their usual tricks prior to January 20th, 2025. And they will only be emboldened by the example. So I really hope, and I think Musk is on the same page with his dark MAGA hats. What I understand that to mean is that there has to be retribution. There has to be punishment for the bad actors who tried to cancel him, who succeeded, frankly, in suppressing you and me and others. There has to be retribution. We have to have actual free speech in this country. We have to protect speech that is annoying, that is controversial, indeed, speech that's even incendiary. You have to allow that speech. And you have to, if it's incendiary, fight back and criticize it. If you don't want to listen to it, turn it the fuck off.
Yeah.
It's up to you to act. When you hear speech that pisses you off, just because somebody offends you, that doesn't give you the right to murder them. Murdering them is a crime. It's your choice to do that. You make a decision to do that. You're going to go to jail. You're going to be punished. That's the way the system needs to work. We don't need a nanny state where Mike Bloomberg and AOC and Pocahontas and Adam Schiff and a bunch of losers, just believe that they can regulate the behaviors of 9 billion people on the planet, in their copious idle time on their
Trump
private jets from their mansions. I mean, that's not the world that we signed up for in America.
Trump mentioned Pocahontas and crazy Bernie Sanders. I thought of you when he said that.
That was
Charles,
great.
yeah, it was great. We're going to take a moment, Charles, and make our way over to the First Amendment Forum. People are going to be able to join us there on odyssey.com/@crowdsourcethetruth, crowdsourcethetruth.substack.com, and subscribestar.com and patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth. I want to talk to you a little bit more about Trump on Joe Rogan. And Joe Rogan had a follow-up show with like Eddie Bravo and all of his friends talking about it. So we have some even more insights into the whole Trump, Kamala, Joe Rogan thing. And we also have a lot more people who are speaking at the rally that we got to talk about. So stay with us, everybody. We'll be right back. Thanks for tuning in.